It's just a formality. That was what my daughter's husband said as he pushed a document across my kitchen table. Ryan had been married to Emily for 68 days. Not even 10 weeks. He sat across from me wearing a navy jacket, white shirt, and the kind of confident smile I had seen on his face 100 times before. Except that night, the smile bothered me. Maybe because of the man sitting beside him. A notary. A complete stranger. Maybe because Ryan had arrived without Emily. Or maybe because somewhere deep down, before I even read the document, I already knew something was wrong. I lowered my eyes to the page. Legal language. Several paragraphs. My name. My daughter's name. A deadline. Then I saw the number. 450万美元. $4.5 million. I read it again. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Like I said, David, it's just paperwork. I didn't answer. The problem wasn't that $4.5 million was a lot of money. The problem was that it was exactly half of something Ryan wasn't supposed to know existed. I looked up. Ryan. Yeah? Where did you get this number? His smile stayed in place, but his eyes changed. Only slightly. What do you mean? I tapped the document. $4.5 million. It's an estimate. Of what? He glanced at the notary, then back at me. The family estate. My father's estate? Yes. And how did you estimate it? He gave a small shrug. Public records, property values, business filings. You know how these things work. Actually, I did. And that was exactly why I knew he was lying. My father's land wasn't worth $9 million. Neither was his scrapyard. Most of his wealth had been hidden in something nobody looking at public records would ever have found. Stocks. Decades of them. Quietly purchased. Rarely sold. Dividends reinvested year after year. When my father died, his attorney and I discovered that the old man who washed plastic sandwich bags so he could reuse them had accumulated a little over $9 million. I had told no one. Not my daughter. Not Ryan. Not my best friend. Nobody. Yet Ryan had somehow arrived at my kitchen table with a legal document demanding exactly half. $4. 5 millions. I looked at him again. How did you know? This time he didn't answer. And that's where the story really begins. My name is David Miller. I'm 57 years old. I've lived in the same Pennsylvania town most of my life. If you've ever driven through one of those towns where Main Street has a hardware store, a diner, 2 churches, a barber shop, and a bank that somehow closes before anyone gets off work, you've seen a place like mine. Miller Hardware sits on the corner of Main and Chestnut. My father helped me open it when I was 26. He loaned me $20,000. I spent the next 6 years trying to repay him. Every time I gave him money, he'd put it in an envelope. When I finally made the last payment, he handed the entire stack back. For Emily, he said. My daughter was 3 years old. I stared at him. You could have told me. You wouldn't have worked as hard. That was my father, George Miller. He believed help should never remove effort from someone's life. Dad owned Miller Metal and Salvage out on Route 9. 41 years. A chain-link fence surrounded the property. Inside were piles of metal, old appliances, stripped cars, copper pipe and machinery, waiting to become something useful again. Dad loved that place. His office was a small concrete room with a metal desk, 2 filing cabinets, and a coffee machine that produced something closer to engine oil than coffee. He drove a Ford pickup until the driver's seat had a permanent depression shaped like him. He owned 3 good shirts, 2 pairs of work boots, 1 brown jacket. Emily once bought him an expensive winter coat for Christmas. He thanked her, tried it on, said it was beautiful, then continued wearing the brown one. Grandpa, why don't you wear the coat I bought you? Saving it. For what? He thought about it. Something cold. Emily laughed for 10 minutes. Dad didn't understand what was funny. Emily adored him. Her mother, Susan, died when Emily was 16. Cancer. 11 months from diagnosis to funeral. For a long time after Susan died, I didn't know how to be both parents. I tried. But there are some conversations a 16-year-old girl doesn't want to have with her father. Dad never forced anything. He just became available. He drove Emily to school, taught her to change a tire, let her sit in his office at the scrapyard doing homework. On Sundays, they ate lunch at a diner called Rosie's. Same booth, same waitress, same order. Dad had meatloaf. Emily changed hers every week. When she went to college, Dad pretended he wasn't emotional. He spent 2 days building shelves for her dorm room. The dorm didn't allow permanent shelves. He built them anyway. When she graduated, he cried. He claimed something had flown into his eye. Inside an auditorium. Emily never let him forget it. By the time she turned 30, she had become a physical therapist. She worked at a rehabilitation clinic about 20 minutes from town. That was where she met Ryan Turner. Ryan was 34. Commercial assurance. Tall, well-dressed, easy smile. The first time Emily brought him to dinner, he arrived with flowers for her and a bottle of wine for me. He also brought Dad a box of imported cigars. Dad had quit smoking 18 years earlier. Emily looked horrified. Ryan, what? Grandpa doesn't smoke. Ryan laughed. I thought you said he liked cigars. I said he used to. Dad took the box. Maybe I'll start again. That broke the tension. We laughed. Even Ryan. I liked him that night. That's important, because later, when everything went wrong, Emily accused me of never giving Ryan a chance. That wasn't true. I wanted to like him. A father doesn't want his daughter to marry a bad man. He wants to be wrong about every uncomfortable feeling. And Ryan gave me plenty of reasons to believe I was wrong. He remembered Emily's birthday. He sent flowers to her clinic. He called me Mr. Miller until I finally told him to stop. When Dad needed help moving an old refrigerator, Ryan came over. When Emily's car battery died, he drove across town. He could be thoughtful. That's what made the rest harder. Bad people in stories are easy. They walk into the room wearing their intentions. Real people don't. Sometimes they hold the door for you while calculating what the building is worth. The first thing that bothered me happened at Christmas. We were eating at Dad's house. Emily and Ryan were engaged by then. Dad was carving ham. Ryan looked through the dining room window toward the property. How much land do you have here, George? Dad didn't look up. Enough. Ryan smiled. Tinakris. More. 20? Dad stopped carving. You buying it? Emily laughed. Grandpa. Ryan raised his hands. Just curious. Dad went back to the ham. Later, Ryan asked about the scrapyard. How many employees? Depends. On what? How many show up? Again, everyone laughed. But Ryan kept going. Business like that must have done pretty well over 40 years. Dad looked at him. Fed my family. That ended it. On the drive home, Emily smiled. Grandpa gives Ryan such a hard time. He gives everybody a hard time. He likes him. Did he say that? He gave Ryan extra ham. Apparently, in our family, that counted as approval. I let the conversation go. A few months later, Dad had his stroke. Tuesday, March 3rd, 6:14 inches the morning. His neighbor, Carol, found him on the kitchen floor. By the time I reached Street Agnes Medical Center, Emily was already in the waiting room. She hadn't even stopped for a coat. Dad. I hugged her. What do they know? Stroke. They're doing scans. Her phone was in her hand. Did you call Ryan? She nodded. He has some client thing. I thought she meant later in the week. Then her phone rang. Ryan. She answered. Can you come? His voice was loud enough for me to hear. I've got the Morrison dinner tonight. My grandfather had a stroke. I know. Can you come? A pause. Then, your dad's there, right? Emily looked at me. Yes. Then you're not alone? I watched her face. It didn't collapse. That would have been easier. She simply became smaller. Okay, I'll try to come afterward. He didn't. At 11:30 that night, he texted her. How's George? That was it. Dad survived. The stroke weakened his left side. His speech came back slowly. I spent most evenings with him. Emily visited whenever she could. Ryan came twice. The second visit was the one I remembered later. I went downstairs for coffee. When I returned, Ryan was sitting close to Dad's bed. They stopped talking when I entered. What are you two discussing? Ryan smiled. Business. Dad looked tired. After Ryan left, I asked him, what did he want? Dad struggled with the words. Yart. What about it? Revenue. I frowned. He asked about the scrapyard's revenue? Dad nodded. Property too. Why? Dad managed half a smile. Family. Financial picture. I felt something cold move through me. Did you tell him? Some. Dad. He lifted his good hand. Just numbers. He doesn't need your numbers. Dad studied me, then slowly said, you don't like him. I didn't say that. You made face. What face? That face. Even after a stroke, he could still irritate me. I laughed, but the feeling remained. When I mentioned it to Emily a few days later, she defended Ryan immediately. He works with risk and finances all day. That doesn't explain asking your grandfather about his business while he's recovering from a stroke. He's trying to connect with him, By asking for revenue? Dad. That tone. The tone children use when their parents have become unreasonable. I stopped. Maybe she was right. I wanted her to be. Dad improved. Slowly. By June, he could walk short distances with a cane. His speech was still rough, but his humor returned. One afternoon, I found him at the kitchen table with the financial pages spread out. You're supposed to be resting. You're reading stock prices. Resting eyes on numbers. I poured coffee. Decaf. He frowned. You trying to kill me? I laughed. He tapped the chair across from him. I sat. For a while, we said nothing. Then Dad asked, Emily happy? I think so. Ryan? What about him? Dad stared at the newspaper. Asks too much. I waited. About money? He nodded. Did he ask again? Cold. When? Last week. My stomach tightened. What did he want? Yard. House. Did you tell Emily? No. Why? Dad looked at me. Her life. That was Dad's philosophy. People had to see things for themselves. I wasn't always sure I agreed, but I understood. Dad died August 19th, 11 days before Emily's wedding. He went to bed after watching baseball. He never woke up. There are worse ways to leave this world. That didn't make it easier. Emily cried against my chest in Dad's kitchen. I can't get married. You don't have to. Grandpa was supposed to be there. I know. He bought a suit. That nearly broke me. Dad hated suits. Apparently, he had secretly bought one. After 2 days, Emily decided not to postpone. Grandpa would tell me I'm wasting everybody's deposits. I laughed. He absolutely would. The funeral was on Sunday. Small. Dad wouldn't have wanted anything else. Ryan behaved perfectly. Too perfectly, I would think later. But grief makes you suspicious of ordinary things. He greeted people, carried flowers, helped Emily. When Mark Collins, Dad's attorney, arrived, I saw Ryan speaking to him near the parking lot. Nothing dramatic. Maybe 2 minutes. I didn't hear the conversation. I didn't ask. 3 days later, Mark called me. Your father left instructions for us to meet alone. Dad had named me executor. I expected paperwork. Property. The scrapyard. His modest investment account. Mark opened a folder. David, did your father ever discuss his portfolio with you? No. Never? He talked about stocks. I assumed it was a hobby. Mark turned a page around. I looked at the figure, then looked again. 918,400,000 I actually laughed. There's a decimal missing. No. Mark, your father started investing in the 70s. I know. He almost never sold. I know. He reinvested dividends for decades. I stared at the number. $9 million. Dad had $9 million. The same man who once drove 20 minutes back to a grocery store because they overcharged him 83 cents. Mark handed me a letter. Dad's handwriting. David, take care of Emily. But don't make money the reason she stops learning how to take care of herself. You'll know when. Dad. I read it 3 times. Everything came to me. Legally. But the intention was clear. Emily was to benefit. Eventually, how much? When? Dad left that to me. Then I thought about Ryan. The hospital questions. The phone call to Dad. The conversation with Mark at the funeral. Who knows this number? I asked. Right now? Yes. You and me. Anyone at your office? Only people required to process the estate. Emily? No. Ryan? Mark looked surprised. Of course not. Keep it that way. He studied me. Is there a problem? I don't know. And that was the truth. I wasn't trying to test Ryan. I wasn't setting a trap. I simply didn't want $9 million dropped into my daughter's marriage 11 days before her wedding. Money changes conversations, sometimes before it changes anything else. Emily asked me about the estate once. Is everything okay? Yes. Anything complicated? Mostly paperwork. Do you need help? No. How much did Grandpa leave? She didn't ask that. That's important. Emily never asked the value. She wanted to know whether I needed help. Ryan was different. At the rehearsal dinner, he found me near the bar. How's the estate coming? Slowly. Mostly the scrapyard? And Dad's house. Any investments? I looked at him. Probably. He smiled. George seemed like the type. What type? Old school investor. Did he? Just a feeling. Then Emily walked over. Ryan kissed her forehead. Conversation over. I said nothing. They married August 30th. I walked my daughter down the aisle. Halfway there, she whispered, I wish Mom and Grandpa were here. So do I. You okay? No. She smiled through tears. Good, me neither. At the altar, Ryan looked at her as if she were the only person in the world. That's the image that troubled me later, because I still believe he loved her. Greed doesn't always replace love. Sometimes it grows beside it. That's what makes it dangerous. 9 days after the wedding, Mark called. Ryan contacted my office. I put down the box I was carrying. Why? He asked whether any estate distributions were scheduled. What did you tell him? Nothing. Did he say Emily asked him to call? No. 2 days later, another email. Then another. Ryan was careful. He didn't demand. He asked technical questions. Probate, trusts, asset distribution, tax treatment. He used professional language. That bothered me more than if he had simply asked, "How much money is there?" Then a friend at the county office mentioned Ryan had searched Dad's property records. Again, nothing illegal. Again, another small stone on the pile. I started paying attention. One Sunday, Emily and Ryan came for dinner. Ryan complimented the house, asked if I'd ever retire, asked whether I planned to sell the hardware store. Then he said, "If you suddenly had enough money, would you stop working?" I smiled. "How much is enough? 5 million? Why 5? He laughed. "Random number. Maybe, maybe not." Later that night, Emily helped me wash dishes. "Dad? Yeah? Do you dislike Ryan?" I stopped. "Why?" "He thinks you do." "Did he say that?" "He says you're guarded around him." I dried a plate. "Emily, I don't dislike your husband. But I don't know him well enough yet." "You've known him almost 2 years. Knowing someone takes longer than meeting them." She rolled her eyes. "You sound like Grandpa." "I'll take that as a compliment." She smiled, then became serious. "He thinks you don't respect him." "I've never said that. You don't have to say everything." That sentence stayed with me, because she was right. Silence communicates too. The question was what my silence had been communicating to Ryan. Maybe caution, maybe distrust, maybe challenge. A week later, Emily called. "Was Grandpa rich?" I froze. "Why?" "Ryan thinks he was." "What do you think?" "I think Grandpa used duct tape on his wallet." I laughed. "He did. Ryan says people who own businesses for decades sometimes have investments nobody knows about." "Does he?" "Dad, don't." "Don't what?" "Make everything sound suspicious." I softened. "Has he been asking you about the estate?" "A little." "Why?" "We're married." "That doesn't answer the question. He wants us to understand our financial future." Our financial future. I didn't like those words. Not because Emily didn't have a future connected to Dad's estate. She did. But Ryan was talking about money nobody had promised him. "Emily." "What?" "Has anyone told Ryan you're receiving an inheritance?" "No." "Have I?" "No." "Then why is he planning around one?" Silence. "You're doing it again." "What?" "Judging him." I stopped. She loved him. If I pushed too hard, she would defend him harder. So I said, "You're right. I'm sorry." I wasn't sorry for the question. I was sorry she was being forced to answer it. A month after Dad's death, I went to the scrapyard. We were preparing to sell the business. I spent the morning sorting Dad's office. His files were organized in a system that made sense only to him. Taxes, employees, equipment, investments. Then I noticed one drawer. The lock was damaged, not destroyed, just bent. Inside, Dad had labeled folders. Most were there. One wasn't. Investments current. I searched the entire office. Nothing. Called Mark. "Did you take Dad's current investment folder?" "No." "Accountant?" "I'll check." The accountant hadn't. I stood alone in Dad's office. For the first time, I felt afraid. Not because of the money, because suspicion is a dangerous thing. Once you let it in, it begins rearranging your memories. Ryan at the hospital. Ryan talking to Dad. Ryan at the funeral. Ryan asking Mark questions. Ryan researching property. Were those connected, or was I turning coincidence into guilt because I already distrusted him? I needed proof. So I waited. That was something Dad understood better than I did. Waiting. November 6th, Friday. 5:50 p.m. I was locking the hardware store when Ryan texted, "Stopping by tonight. Bringing someone. Need to make something official. 10-minute. He arrived at my house at 6:40. The man with him introduced himself as Paul Bennett, a notary. We sat at the kitchen table. Ryan didn't ask about Emily, didn't ask whether I'd eaten, didn't even accept coffee. He opened his folder. "It's just a formality." Then he pushed the paper toward me. 450万美元. exactly half of 9 million. And suddenly, every question I'd been carrying became one question. How did he know? I asked him. He gave me the public record explanation. It didn't work. I knew it. He knew I knew it. Paul, the notary, began looking uncomfortable. Mr. Turner told me this amount had already been discussed. I turned to Ryan. Did he? Ryan leaned forward. David, Emily is George's only granddaughter. Yes. You inherited everything. Yes. You know George wanted her taken care of. Yes. So we're simply putting an agreement in writing. They? He paused. You know what I mean. No. I pushed the document toward him. I don't. His jaw tightened. Emily and I are married. Yes. Her future is my future. That still doesn't explain $4.5 million. Paul closed his pen. Ryan looked at me. You're being difficult. No. I stood. I am being precise. I went to my desk and returned with copies of his communications with Mark's office. I placed them on the table. 7 contacts. Ryan glanced down. That's not illegal. I didn't say it was. Public records aren't illegal either. I didn't say they were. Then what exactly are you accusing me of? Nothing. I leaned forward. I'm asking you a question. I tapped $4,500,000. How did you know? He didn't answer. Paul stood. I don't think I should be part of this. Ryan looked at him. Sit down. Paul didn't. I was told both parties had already discussed the transfer. We have. No, I said. We haven't. Paul picked up his folder. I won't notarize this. Ryan's face hardened. After Paul left, Ryan remained. He looked at me. You're going to give Emily the money eventually. That's none of your business. She's my wife. Then worry about being her husband. His face changed. There are moments when a mask doesn't fall completely. It just slips. This isn't only your decision. Yes, Ryan. I looked around the kitchen. My father's estate is exactly my decision. He stood. You can't keep $9 million and pretend. He stopped. I didn't move. Neither did he. The clock above the stove ticked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then I said, I never told you 9. The color left his face. Mark did. No. Emily. She doesn't know. You must have mentioned it. No. He looked toward the door. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Where did you get the number? I estimated it. No. I told you. You just confirmed you knew. Silence. Leave. David. Leave my house. He did. But I wasn't finished. The next morning, I drove to the scrapyard. Dad had installed security cameras after copper thefts. Most footage was overwritten every month, but an insurance claim had caused the office manager to save several weeks from August. We searched. August 23rd. Dad's funeral. Patsambalanti buwan PM. Ryan's car entered the lot. I leaned closer to the screen. He got out, walked to Dad's office, used something near the door, then disappeared inside. 18 minutes later, he emerged. His right hand was inside his jacket. I felt sick. The office manager looked at me. Want me to make a copy? Yes. I took it to Mark. He watched quietly. This proves he was there, but not what he took. Correct. Dad's investment folder is missing. That matters, but still not proof. No, Mark thought, then opened an estate file. There may be another way he learned the number. He showed me a preliminary portfolio statement. $8. 86 millions. Where was this? George's study, sealed estate packet. After he died? Yes. Dad's house had been full of people. Ryan could have seen it, but I still needed more, so I called him. Come to the hardware store. He arrived 40 minutes later. I locked the door, played the security video. He stared at himself walking into Dad's office. You told me you'd never been there. I forgot. You forgot being at a scrapyard on the afternoon of my father's funeral? I went to look for something Emily left. What? I don't remember. Interesting. I closed the laptop. Did you take the investment folder? No. Did you see Dad's portfolio statement? No. Then tell me how you knew 9 million. He stared at me. You're going to give it to Emily anyway. I felt my stomach drop. What? She's his granddaughter. So? You inherited everything. How is that fair? Fair? You have $9 million because an old man signed a piece of paper. There it was again. 9 million. Not an estimate. Knowledge. You knew before the wedding, didn't you? He said nothing. How long? David? How long? His voice rose. I was protecting Emily. From what? From you deciding she deserved nothing. I stared at him. Get out. You think you're better than me because you don't care about money? No. I stepped closer. I think you're dangerous because you care about money that was never yours. He left. Then came the hardest part, telling Emily. Ryan got to her first. When she arrived at my house, she was angry. What did you say to him? Sit down. Dad, please. She sat. I showed her the document. $4. 5 millions. Her anger disappeared. What is this? Ryan brought it Friday. She read. Then looked at me. Is Grandpa's estate really worth $9 million? Yes. Her eyes filled. You lied to me. No. You hid it. Yes. Why? Because Grandpa asked me to take care of you in my own time. That's not an answer. It is the only one I had. You didn't trust me. I trusted you. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't trust what the information might do around you. She knew. Ryan. Yes. She stood. You've hated him from the beginning. No. You've been waiting for this. No. You wanted him to fail. That hurt. Because there was a small piece of truth inside it. Not that I wanted Ryan to fail, but I'd been afraid he would. And sometimes fear looks a lot like expectation. I wanted to be wrong. She shook her head. You should have told me. Maybe. That stopped her. I wasn't going to defend every decision. Maybe I should have told her. Parents don't become perfect just because they are suspicious for the right reasons. I may have been wrong to hide the number from you. She stared at me. But that doesn't explain this. I tapped the document, then showed her Ryan's calls to Mark, the public record searches. Finally, the scrapyard video. She watched. Once. Twice. He told me he went there. My heart jumped. When? After Grandpa's funeral. Why? He said he left his watch in Grandpa's office. Did he? She frowned. I don't know. Had he been in Dad's office before? Yes. At the hospital, Grandpa gave him his keys once because Ryan said he could pick up some insurance papers. I went still. When? March. That changed everything. Ryan had access months before Dad died. Emily, what insurance papers? I don't know. Did Grandpa ask him? I thought so. Did Grandpa tell you that? No. She stared at me. The first crack. Small. But there. I need to go home. Okay. You aren't going to tell me to leave him? No. Why not? Because then if you do, you'll always wonder whether it was my decision. Her face crumpled slightly. I wanted to hug her. I didn't. Not until she stepped toward me first. She didn't. She left. For 4 days, I heard nothing. I barely slept. I went to work. Came home. Read Dad's letter. You'll know when. I wasn't sure I knew anything anymore. On the 5th evening, Emily appeared at my door. She was carrying a laptop and a folder. Her face told me everything before she spoke. I checked. Illiterin. We sat at the kitchen table. I asked Ryan to show me his emails. He wouldn't? He said I was letting you poison me against him. She opened the laptop, so I checked the old shared computer. Search history. Scrapyard property values. George Miller assets. Probate Pennsylvania inheritance granddaughter. Private business valuation. Estate beneficiary rights. The searches began months before the wedding. Then Emily showed me an email. Ryan had written to a college friend 6 days before the wedding. If George's portfolio is what I think it is, Em could be sitting on serious money after probate. Emily's voice shook. He knew. I read it again. He was researching Grandpa before we got married. Yes. He says he was planning our future. I said nothing. He says that's what responsible couples do. What do you think? She looked at me. I think responsible couples talk to each other. That was my daughter, not my opinion. Hers. There's more. She opened another email. This one was sent after Dad's funeral. Looks like roughly 9. If David controls it, Emily needs something in writing before he moves assets. I closed my eyes. There it was. No mystery anymore. No estimate. Ryan knew. How did he get the portfolio number? I asked him. And? He admitted seeing Grandpa's statement. Where? At Grandpa's house. When? The day of the funeral. My hands tightened. He says it was lying on the desk. Was it? I don't know. And the scrapyard? He says he went there looking for supporting documents. I stared at her. He admitted that? Yes. Her eyes filled. He said he was protecting me. I didn't know what to say. Sometimes the cruelest lies are the ones people tell themselves first. Emily started crying. I married him 11 days after Grandpa died. I moved beside her. He stood beside me at the funeral. I put my arm around her, and while I was crying because Grandpa was gone, Ryan was thinking about what Grandpa was worth. Her shoulders shook. I feel so stupid. No. I defended him. You loved him. I should have known. How? The questions. You thought curiosity meant interest in your family. She looked at me. Didn't you? That caught me. Yes. At first. So why am I stupid for believing the same thing? I smiled sadly. You aren't. She leaned against me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked, what do you want to do? I don't know. Then don't decide tonight. She stayed in the guest room. The next morning, Ryan came. Emily answered the door. I stayed in the kitchen. Come home. No. Emily, your father has been waiting to destroy us. No. You don't understand estate law. I understand your emails. Silence. Then, I was protecting you. From my father? Yes. The man who paid for half our wedding? That isn't the point. The man who let us use Grandpa's cabin for our engagement weekend? Emily. The man you've been secretly investigating for months? I was investigating the estate. She laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. That's supposed to make it better? You're entitled to part of it. No. Yes, you are. No, Ryan. Her voice became very calm. That's Grandpa's money. Dad inherited it. If Dad gives me something, that's his decision. He's manipulating you, and you brought a notary to his house. I was creating protection for us. There is no us in that document. What? I read it. Silence. You wrote it around my name, but you never asked me, because I knew you'd get emotional. That was the moment. I heard it. Emily heard it. The house seemed to hear it. She opened the door wider. Leave. Leave. Don't throw away our marriage over money. She answered, I'm not. A pause. You did. Then the door closed. 6 weeks later, Emily filed for divorce. I never told her to. Ryan apologized, then blamed me, then apologized again, then told Emily she was making the biggest mistake of her life, then asked whether they could at least settle the financial question before separating. That last request ended whatever uncertainty remained. The divorce wasn't instant. Real life rarely wraps itself up as quickly as stories do. There were meetings, lawyers, tears. Emily moved into a small apartment. For a while, she stopped coming to Sunday dinner, not because she was angry with me, because Dad's empty chair hurt. Ryan hurt. Everything hurt. I gave her space. Then one December afternoon, she called. Can we go to Grandpa's house? We sat at his kitchen table, same table where he had read financial pages for decades. His magnifying glass was still in the drawer. I brought his letter. Emily read it. Take care of Emily, but don't make money the reason she stops learning how to take care of herself. You'll know when. She smiled through tears. That's so, Grandpa. Yes. Then she looked at me. Were you always going to give me some? Of course. How much? I didn't know. Half? No. She laughed. Good. Why good? Because after the last few months, $4.5 million makes me nauseous. I understood. She ran her fingers over the table. I don't want money to be the ending. What do you mean? Grandpa worked his whole life. Yes. He gave people jobs. Yes. He taught me how to change brake pads when I was 13. He ruined my driveway doing it. She smiled. Can we do something with some of it? Like what? I don't know, we thought. For weeks. Then Emily found the answer. The community center on Route 9 had been trying to raise money for vocational programs. Welding, small engine repair, basic electrical skills, certification, exactly the kind of work Dad respected. We funded an addition, not with all the money, not even close. Dad would have come back to haunt me if I'd spent $9 million on a building. We invested most of the estate. I secured my retirement, created a carefully structured trust for Emily, and used a portion for the program. The George Miller Skills Workshop. Opening day was in April. Emily wore Susan's blue coat. I almost couldn't look at her. You okay? She asked. No. She smiled. Good. The same thing she'd said on her wedding day. But this time, the tears felt different. Dale stood beside me. He'd managed my hardware store for 11 years and known Dad even longer. He looked around the workshop. George would hate this. The program? The attention? I laughed. Yes. He'd ask how much the sign cost. Then remove it himself. Sell the metal. We laughed. Emily cut the ribbon. Inside, young people stood beside welding equipment and workbenches. On one wall was a photograph of Dad. Brown jacket, arms crossed, that half smile. For the first time since he died, I didn't feel like the photograph represented something that was gone. It represented something that had continued. Months later, Emily and I sat outside the workshop after everyone had left. "Dad? Yeah? Do you regret hiding the money?" I thought carefully. "I regret that hiding it hurt you. That isn't what I asked." "No." "Why?" "Because I wasn't trying to trick anyone." I looked toward Dad's photograph through the glass. "I needed time. To test Ryan?" "No." "To test me?" "No." "Then what?" "To let life continue without $9 million changing the way everyone behaved." She considered that. "Did it work?" I thought about Ryan. "No." She looked surprised. "The money was already changing him, even though he didn't have it." Exactly. That was what I had finally understood. Ryan didn't become greedy after receiving money. He never received any. He became consumed by the possibility of it. And that possibility was enough. Emily rested her head against my shoulder. "Grandpa always said people tell you who they are." "He did." I thought he meant by what they say. "No." I smiled. He almost never cared what people said. What did he care about? What they did when nobody was watching. A year later, Emily walked into Miller Hardware carrying 2 coffees, one black, one filled with enough cream to qualify as dessert. She handed me the black one. A young man named Jason was at the counter. He had completed the welding program at Dad's workshop. He'd just gotten his first full-time job. He needed gloves and a few tools. I rang him up, then quietly removed 20%. After he left, Emily looked at the receipt. "You gave him a discount?" "No, Dad. Inventory adjustment." She laughed. "Grandpa would have done the same thing." "No, he absolutely would. Your grandfather charged me interest on a lawnmower when I was 19. You paid him every cent. What did he do with it?" "Probably bought stock." We laughed. Then I looked at Dad's photograph behind the register. For most of my life, I thought inheritance meant what somebody left you when they died. Money, property, stocks, a business, $9 million. But I was wrong. Those are assets. Inheritance is different. Dad left me patience. He left Emily resilience. He left both of us an understanding that work has value beyond the money it earns. And he taught me something I didn't fully understand until after he was gone. Money doesn't test people. Waiting does. Because when someone believes there's nothing to gain, that's when you learn whether they'll still show up. When Dad was lying in a hospital bed, Ryan had a business dinner. Dale closed my hardware store without being asked and brought me a phone charger. One man thought about what the situation could eventually give him. Another simply noticed what I needed. That's the difference. Ryan thought the secret of this story was $9 million. It wasn't. The real secret was that while he was trying so hard to discover what my father had left behind, he was showing us exactly what kind of man my daughter had married. I didn't need to expose him. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to destroy his career or chase him through courtrooms. I just needed to stop making excuses for what I was seeing. And eventually, Emily saw it too. The money remained. Most of it still invested exactly the way Dad would have wanted. But the marriage didn't. And strange as it sounds, I'm grateful the truth came out before Emily spent 20 years discovering it slowly. Sometimes a secret protects the wrong person. Sometimes it protects the right one. And sometimes keeping something quiet simply gives people enough room to reveal what they would have done if they believed nobody was watching. If you were in my position, would you have told Emily about the $9 million before her wedding? Or would you have kept the amount private until you understood Ryan's intentions? And if you were Emily, could you ever trust your husband again after discovering he had been researching your grandfather's money before you were even married? Tell me what you would have done in the comments. I always enjoy reading how you would handle these difficult family situations. If this story stayed with you, please like the video, share it with someone who might appreciate its message, and subscribe to Hidden Stories for more emotional stories about family, love, secrets, betrayal, forgiveness, and the truths that sometimes take years to see. Because sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't the money someone leaves behind. It's learning how to recognize the people who would still stand beside you if there were no money at all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.